Wall Township, our Wall Township Public Schools, and most specifically our family here at Old Mill School. So this evening we've invited Dr. Richard Lynch. Dr. Richard Lynch, he is a certified
industrial hygienist, and we have had the privilege of working with Dr. Lynch on other projects as well. And I've asked him to share with you some of his background because without question, he is a leader in his field. And it is an absolute priority of the Wall Township Board of Education to provide the expertise for our community, because they deserve the best expertise as we can provide. So without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Richard Lynch. Dr. Lynch.
Thanks, Dr. Handerhan, and thank you, Board of Education and staff. I really appreciate the opportunity to support the district as you move forward with the decisions that you're making to upgrade your buildings so that they're more comfortable and safe for your staff and for your students. And in this particular context, with the information that is now available, to help the district make the right decisions going forward as we learn more. I'm Dr. Richard Lynch, President of Environmental Safety Management Corporation. I'm a certified industrial hygienist. I am also a fellow of the American Industrial Hygiene Association, former professor of industrial hygiene and public health at Rutgers in New Brunswick, and have been doing environmental health and safety consulting to school districts, pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing sites, state and county government in New Jersey for the last 30 some odd years. I'm the former acting program manager of the Public Employees Occupational Safety and Health Act program, PEOSHA, at the State Department of Health. My group actually wrote the indoor air quality standards for public buildings that is enforced throughout the state of New Jersey to ensure that all schools have good air quality. We are one of the few states in the nation that actually has a regulation to support good air quality in public sector buildings. It was my team that actually wrote the original draft of that before it was promulgated later. I was called tonight to share a few pieces of information with you related to Old Mill School and the recent discovery of some low-level asbestos in some of the ceiling tiles in some parts of the building, and sort of how we came to that conclusion and the steps that we should be taking going forward to make sure that as the work on the upcoming referendum, HVAC and electrical upgrades occurs, that work does not inadvertently disturb otherwise excellent condition asbestos-containing ceiling tiles and make, therefore, a mess. And we think that the steps that the district has taken to precautionarily test materials and then come up with a plan of action makes sense in this context. So I'm just going to take about 15 minutes now and kind of go through a slide presentation to kind of walk everyone through this. And at that point, I think it would be appropriate to open it up to any questions that you may have. But let me get through the 15 minutes here, if you would. So there was a referendum that was passed in 2022, and that included lots of upgrades throughout the district. Here at Old Mill, it included some HVAC system upgrades, which also require electrical and plumbing upgrades to go with that. That renovation, when the facilities and the business office looked at the plan for that renovation, it became clear that would require a lot of very aggressive work up in the ceiling cavity spaces throughout many, many classrooms, bathrooms, hallway areas throughout the building. Old Mill, like the other schools in the district, like most other districts throughout the state of New Jersey who have buildings that were built before 1980, have asbestos-containing materials in them. Under the Environmental Protection Agency's HERA law, all school districts, including Wall Township, has to inventory and manage the asbestos-containing materials that are in the building to ensure that they are in good shape, and if they become deteriorated or they get the condition worsens, to make a decision as to whether or not they should be managed and placed or removed. The Wall Township Schools has been managing an HERA program, including, bulk samples, regular inspections since 1989 or so. And as part of that, and as part of the due diligence in preparation for the referendum-related work, the facilities team, along with the business office, sort of reviewed all of the materials that were likely to be disturbed by contractors in all of the schools that may or may not contain asbestos. And what they did was they contracted a consultant to review old HERA reports and collect additional confirmatory samples in things like floor tile and floor tile grout, caulking, sheetrock, wherever there was likelihood that there was going to be a disturbance of those materials, and collected additional samples just to confirm that the original information that is in the HERA program from the original 1989 and 1997 updates and beyond were accurate related to this renovation. Ceiling tiles in a few bathrooms in this building came back surprisingly with very low levels of asbestos content in them, which contradicted prior sampling results from prior surveys. And when that occurred, the team decided, let's get another set of eyes on this. And so they brought another consultant in to collect additional samples, which also showed some variation of extremely low levels of asbestos in some of the ceiling tiles. When that occurred, the district said, okay, before we go any further, and the renovations are planned to take place, some portions, this summer, some portions going into next summer. But with that information, they said, let's make a good decision on what we need to do. So the district reached out to me to put yet another set of eyes on the data that had been received. So in April, we walked through the building with the facilities team, with Dr. Handerhan, Mr. Smythe, and I got some general familiarity with the building, looked at the sampling results, looked at the old reports, and based on that, I decided that maybe a good next step would be for us to do a very aggressive oversampling of the ceiling tiles throughout the building at a rigor that far exceeds what a HERA requires, what it ever required. And so the district agreed to go ahead and take that on and engaged a consultant to do this aggressive sampling. And the aggressive sampling plan that we're going to share with you included some 21, as far as I was concerned, representative classrooms throughout the building, and roughly 76 or so ceiling tiles throughout the building, when a HERA only requires 3. And our goal was to really make sure that we understand the variance, and then from that we can kind of decide whether or not this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and if so, how it needs to be addressed. So I'm going to share with you what those results are after I kind of back up a little bit and just give you a little bit of background. And for many people who have been in school districts for a long time, this is all review information, but in case it's new to you, asbestos is a very, very common material that was installed in buildings leading up to 1980 because of its superior physical properties, resistance to abrasion, resistance to erosion, strength, lightweight, not corrosive, not easily corroded. It was installed in many types of materials throughout all kinds of buildings. Floor tiles, fireproofing on ceilings, pipe insulation. We see it in schools throughout the state. Our hospital clients have it, our pharmaceutical clients have it, lots of manufacturing places have it, and homes have it as well. But in the 70s, leading up to 1980, epidemiologic evidence for workers who were installing asbestos-containing materials began to become very clear that it was responsible for some very important and serious diseases, including lung cancer, cancer of the lining of the lung, which is called mesothelioma, asbestosis, which is a scarring of the lung. And these kinds of diseases were developing after a long latency period, 10 to 40 years, to these workers who were exposed to very, very high levels of this material during installation. And so because of that, the EPA said no more installation of asbestos in buildings and wrote the AHERA Act to kind of inventory and manage it in place. And of course, what the EPA says is, if the material's in good shape, keep it in place. But you have to monitor it, and you have to kind of stay on top of it, and it begins to deteriorate, then there are ways to handle that. So, I think I had another slide that I'm looking for here. The PE-OSHA and OSHA standard for asbestos requires that workers, teachers, not be exposed to more than about 0.1 fibers of asbestos per cubic centimeter of air. The EPA AHERA Act requires that when when asbestos is removed from a school, that after that's done, the clearance level is not 0.1, but 0.01 fibers per cc, 10 times lower to protect children, teachers, at a level at least 10 times stronger than the general public and workers. So what did we do? We collected air samples in 21 classrooms, hallways, library areas, teachers' lounges, throughout the building, both levels of the building, to really get a really good sense of it. And we were comparing, the plan was to compare whatever we found to that EPA 0.01 fibers per cc standard. What we learned was that no asbestos fibers were detected in air at all, at a detection limit of 0.002 fibers per cc, which is about 1/5 of the EPA clearance criteria. So the first sort of message that tells us is that there's no indication of any abnormal airborne asbestos exposure to teachers, students, or visitors, staff that would be working in the building or visiting the building. And that's not a surprise. The condition of the tiles is amazingly good. In fact, probably 90% of the original tiles that were installed for that portion, those portions of the building that were back in 1971 are still in place because they are in excellent condition. They're not deteriorating, they're not friable, they're not falling apart. No airborne asbestos was suggested for students, teachers, administrators. We also collected, and by the way, that's a picture that I took when we inspected above the ceiling. That's actually above the ceiling tile and the ceiling cavities. So you can kind of see that there's, that they're in good shape. We also collected bulk samples of the tiles. And we collected from those 21 rooms about 76 samples from the various vintages of tile that were there. And we had them all analyzed for asbestos. And what we found was that the asbestos content varied. It was all extremely low, less than 1%, 1 to 2%. The highest we found was 3%. And the analytical method, I can tell you, sort of as a side note here, the analytical method that the laboratories use to look for asbestos in slides recognizes that once you get down to below 3% asbestos content, you're kind of dealing in the area of noise. Okay, it's, you know, the accuracy of the analytical method goes down when the content is that low. Which might explain why in the past some of the samples that may have been collected didn't detect it. That doesn't surprise me. So there was a variation in the asbestos content in the tiles, but again, no asbestos in the air. It appears that the pattern is that there are some tiles that have a pinkish or reddish backing, and those are the ones that were more likely to show low levels of asbestos content than some of the newer, you know, gray back tiles. And so we collected enough samples that now we think we see the pattern. Some of the red back tiles still came back non-detected. So there is variation even within them. That doesn't surprise me either, because it's not necessarily a homogeneous mix from one batch when you have something like this. So all of this makes sense to us. So again, to review, no airborne asbestos risk at all, but we do have low-level asbestos content in tiles in the original sort of construction wings of the building, lots of the classrooms and hallways in that area. You've got renovations that occurred along the south side, first floor classrooms here that happened somewhere around 2000. Those tiles don't have any, those tiles don't show any asbestos content. You have a new addition in the back along the west end of the building that some computer labs and things like that. Nothing came up there as well, but it's mostly the other classrooms there. So that's what we believe. And so based on that, we made some recommendations. These are some images that were collected during the walkthroughs and et cetera. So you can see some hallways, bathrooms. We definitely detected it in some of the bathrooms as well. But again, the condition is good. This tile got out of position somehow. I'm not sure how this slide got out of position, but we already covered sort of the standards for that. But this is a good slide, because you can see here in this slide that you have sort of one vintage of tile here, and then you have some newer tiles there. And so again, within most of the classrooms that had that original vintage tile, the tile is still in excellent shape and it's still there. A small percentage of them have been replaced over the years. So what's sort of next? So based on this, you know, I reviewed the data and made some recommendations to the district, and I believe that those reports are available and have been made available on the website. The summary is this: no airborne asbestos inhalation risk is suggested. The new findings of low-level asbestos content in ceiling tiles requires some additional work now on the part of the district. The district has had an asbestos management plan in place for decades and continues to manage that. The district now has to update that inventory to indicate that these tiles are now considered to be asbestos containing. The management plan also needs to be updated, and the work procedures for the facilities staff, who are the ones that are most likely to come into contact with these tiles, have to be upgraded. And so there's some work that now, regulatorily speaking, from the PE-OSHA perspective, now has to sort of be worked out with the facility staff. And we're going to work with Mr. Van Sickle's team to kind of get those things in place. And so we'll be working with them directly. So that's kind of what those lower three bullets on the left-hand side kind of indicate. I'll update the AHERA plan, update the asbestos management plan and inspection procedures, and then we're updating operations and maintenance procedures for facilities maintenance staff to include the things, the precautions that they've been taking on the other asbestos materials. Now we also have to sort of apply that to the ceiling tiles in this building. Based on what we found and based on what the data suggested from all of the reports that I've reviewed, we're recommending, we made a recommendation to the district, and the district is moving forward in this direction to plan for a full subchapter 8 asbestos abatement to remove all of those asbestos-containing ceiling tiles in this building, to be done this summer. That's going to be a big project. And we think it's the right thing to do, because when the HVAC upgrades project gets going next summer, that work is going to be tough. They're going to have to remove tiles. Those guys are not going to be so careful. That's why Bill and those guys did the testing in the first place. But construction projects over the summer that deal with plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, they're messy projects. Let's get these tiles out of play. So the district is moving forward now with respect to getting bids from potential contractors to put together plans for a widespread asbestos abatement for the ceiling tiles in this building. And we think that's the right thing to do, and we agree that the district is taking the right action on that. Second bullet on the right-hand side. Based upon these new findings, and now that we see this, what Mr. Van Sickle and I are going to be doing with the other consultant is we're going to go back and look at the other buildings and see if there are other tiles that also within the other buildings may be in the same category. And if they are, they'll be integrated into the asbestos management plan and the operations and maintenance procedures that we're upgrading. Those tiles are not going to be disturbed as part of any referendum, so there's no indication that they need to come out, just like you don't pull out vinyl asbestos floor tiles from your library. But it's good that the district already looked at all of the materials that are likely to be impacted by the referendum. These are the ones that need special attention. And so we're going to look at the other buildings and see what kind of procedural issues may come up in there as well. And then finally, the final bullet on the right-hand side is that based on all of the information that we've just described, we will revise and update your operations and maintenance programs wherever, for these materials, wherever we find them in the district. But again, just to review and to finalize here, because this is really the last slide, we think that the assertive actions on the part of the district, not just relying upon the previous sampling reports to say, let's aggressively look and just confirm that the materials that are going to be disturbed by the referendum work don't have asbestos, was the right thing to do. That was responsible, and that is really protective for the community that, is under the care of the business facilities and superintendent's office. That was the right thing to do. Based on the findings, they took additional steps to confirm with multiple consultants, and then after an aggressive set of sampling results, we believe that there is no indicated inhalation risk. The tiles are in good shape, but some of them contain asbestos, and we're going to do a proper removal and get the proper documentation over the course of the summer, correct? So that when teachers come back in September, there'll be new tiles, but we will be ready for the next stages of the referendum-related renovations without concern over running into unexpected asbestos-containing material. So with that, I think I'd like to stop talking now, open it up to questions, or Dr. Handerhan, do you want to say a few words before we open it up?
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Dr. Lynch, for working so diligently with us and our team at WTPS. So I thank you for that. I also want to reiterate, and especially for those that may be viewing this online, all of the reports are available online. If you were a parent, you would have received the letter, and they're hyperlinked, all the reports that Dr. Lynch was referencing. If you are a member of the Wall community and not a parent in our schools, please visit the website, because the lab results are available through the departments, and then the facilities tab. You'll see everything broken out. And another way to get there is to look on the homepage and see the letters, and you can get direct access through there. And also through the superintendent's communications, you'll be able to access all the information that you need. So you have a couple of different ways through the website to access it. Again, all of the results are available for you, so please, I invite you to look. I think probably so that we could hear everyone's question, if there is. Dr. Lynch, did you want to take a seat at the table? And I can, if someone has a question, I can travel to you. So, of course, the camera, please, can stay facing forward. You don't want to get me, bending over with the microphone. So does anyone have any questions for Dr. Lynch, certainly me, Mr. Smythe, Mr. Van Sickle, Ms. Antonello? Are there any questions? Yes, I'm going to go over here. Excuse me.
Thank you. I just have a question about ceiling tiles that have been removed and replaced in the past. Over the years, the building has had multiple mold remediation projects, and we were told to be very vigilant in reporting any ceiling tiles that looked like they were bulging or had moisture in them, and they would be replaced. I guess listening to your presentation, I wonder, was there a risk historically to us when those ceiling tiles were removed? And was there any determination that was made at the time to see whether or not they were asbestos-containing tiles? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, and I think that there are two parts to the answer. Where do I want to start? One of the things that we're going to be doing going forward, and I mentioned in that the third bullet on the left-hand side is, I said we're going to be working with Mr. Van Sickle's team to kind of do some of the things that are now required based on that knowledge. One of those things is that we have to do something called an exposure determination. And the methods that we're going to use during that assessment would actually be able to get at an answer to your question. These tiles are in great shape, but we're actually going to do removals, and we're going to be doing the kind of testing during those removals so that I can answer that question directly. But more broadly speaking, we have a lot of experience in other districts with working with these kinds of materials, and generally speaking, from our experience in doing asbestos air sampling as work is going on, the dust sampling that we also do during renovation activities, and with basic cleanup, there's not an indication that even over even one shift, that it's likely that you would have overexposure above the standard. We think that there is a possibility that the maintenance guys themselves, who are working directly with it, may have shorter duration and possibly higher exposures. And that's something that we have to work with the facilities team to answer. But with respect to teachers, students, administrators, that work is typically done, if that work is typically done not while kids are in the classroom, if that work is done after hours, if that work is done in the morning, if that work is done on weekends, and the custodial team does the typical cleanup when they remove tiles, there's not in my mind a high likelihood that there would be overexposures, but we are going to be doing measurements. Does that get at your answer? Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just want to make the point, though, that the ceiling tiles that were removed because they contained moisture were not in good condition. They were deteriorated.
And that's
Very
part of the
friable.
problem, and that's right, and that's important. In fact, what and Bill, maybe you want to speak to this, but there are some areas where you had leaks and those tiles were replaced, and sometimes multiple times.
Sorry. I think that it's fair to say that there are probably certain areas of the building where the ceiling tiles have been replaced 8 or 9 times.
Yes.
And the original replacement is the singular time when there possibly could have been an exposure, if at all, right? But that subsequent to that, each replacement was with a new radar-style tile or a new Armstrong tile.
Right, because it was done after
That's-
1989.
That's correct.
Right. So we're going to work through that stuff, but those are reasonable questions, I think.
Thank you.
Will you be replacing all of the tiles or just the ones that contained asbestos?
So there's 2 parts to that answer. The south wing, you want to speak to this, Bill?
At present, what we plan to do, right, the scope of the work that we are trying to accomplish this summer is to remediate the locations where this tile exists. So if there are 78 tiles in a classroom and 75 of them are this particular tile, all of those tiles will be changed. But if you go to the cafeteria where none of these tiles exist, that will not be changed, all right? And candidly, part of the reason we need to do that is because we need to empty everything out of the classrooms. We need some place to put it. So it's nice to have the gym space, it's nice to have the cafeteria space as kind of overflow for all of the things that are going to need to come out of the classrooms that do in fact have this material.
Hi. My concern is I worked here for 22 years, and I was in multiple rooms, and multiple times. I want to start by saying the custodians and the maintenance workers that work in this district are amazing and really hardworking. But there are times the teachers were in the rooms also when tiles were getting changed. And as we spoke of before, they were literally falling apart. So there is concern for people who've worked here for a really long time that they were possibly exposed also. So I don't know how you go about testing for that.
The good news is that there's a pretty strong epidemiologic database for asbestos and asbestos-related disease. Lots of studies have been published. Part of what I will do as we do sort of these next steps will be to sort of try to contextualize the range of potential exposures that a teacher, who may have been in a room when tiles were replaced, sort of how that fits into the epidemiologic sort of scheme of things, which might be very different than the answer we find for custodians who are working with that. And that's sort of the hard work of this work. My doctorate degree is in public health. My minor was in epidemiology, and I have, I work very closely with a lot of physicians who, in occupational environmental health, who sort of understand how to think about that. And to the extent that we need to, we'll get the help. But the first step that we're going to be taking toward being able to sort of tool us with how to think about that is that we're going to do this exposure assessment piece for the work so that we can be, with some integrity, answer the kinds of questions you're talking about.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions?
Hi, this
Hi.
is for Dr. Lynch in regards to, there was a faculty member Friday that had met with you after our meeting in regards to testing all of the classrooms, including the ones that didn't have windows. Is that decided on if we're doing that or not?
There was a conversation about the representative sample that I sort of chose for what I thought were the appropriate rooms. did not include some interior sort of closet spaces that may also have some of the tiles in there. And we're able to, we can, as part of what we're doing in this next phase, we can certainly pull some samples from there. I don't recall a conversation suggesting that every single classroom that, also be sampled. I believe that the sample that we have collected is beyond enough information for us to be able to make the necessary inferences for what's going on.
Okay. It was just a concern that there were some teachers that are in those classrooms. What else? You talked about the tiles. I have a list here. As far as the bids for the contractors, is there a date now yet that when you're going to vote on those bids, and after, what is the exact start time?
So the project to abate the ceiling tiles for this summer, it will be in the paper advertised this Thursday.
Okay.
We have bids scheduled to be received on May 21st with intent to award that evening at the Board of Education meeting on May 21st. And we anticipate that the work will start as soon as school lets out, but that at the same time where the school is prepared in order for them to do the abatement.
Okay. And thank you. I'm sorry, I had some epidemiology. I think that was all it. Thank you. Okay.
Are there any more questions? Okay, I just want to stress, I've mentioned this in the letter that was sent home on Friday. Old Mill Schools, to do a proper abatement, the school is going to be shut down for the bulk of the summer. And I want to make that clear. There will be certain inconveniences, certainly to the staff members that work at Old Mill. Without question, there will be inconveniences. To families, to our parents, there will be inconveniences. But I have to stress that to do a proper abatement and all the required testing to make sure our buildings are ready, it requires time. This is something we're not going to rush. This is something that we are going to, we are going to follow to the letter. And we have an amazing team, an amazing group of individuals that work in our facilities department. And Dr. Lynch is going to be with us, working through our procedures and all of the subsequent testing. And, we're on the same page. We all want the same things. And, while it will be inconvenient, it'll be great to complete this project. And we're going to do so safely, but it's going to take some time. And I just want to, thank you in advance for the patience and understanding, because, it's a big project and your buildings will not be accessible for most of the summer. Ms. Antonello and her office staff, she will be working out of another building. I just want to make everybody aware, especially the Old Mill family, you will absolutely, it will not be, where is Ms. Antonello hiding today? I promise that we will communicate exactly where she and her staff will be so that they can best support the families of Old Mill School. And I also want to share that when we get more information, timelines, we're going to share it on our website for you. And certainly the Old Mill families will be communicating directly because, as Mr. Smythe mentioned, we are getting ready for bid. We're looking to award the bid on May 21st. We're not dragging our feet because we want to start this project as soon as humanly possible after the 2024 school year ends. So we want to get in there and we want to start working so that, certainly our goal is to make sure everything is tip-top and ready to welcome our staff back to prepare their classrooms come the end of August. So that is what we're aiming to do. Yes, another question.
I know there's no definite answer on this, but an approximation. Dr. Lynch, once you start doing your scans and determining classrooms that are maybe potentially more affected than others and staff that may have had exposure, this whole process that you're going through, I'm not trying to pin you down to an exact, but do you have any idea maybe what we're talking about in terms of then a timeline for contacting that staff? In other words, when would potentially our custodial staff here? In other words, are we talking about September? Are we talking about 4 weeks from now? Just to kind of give people an idea of when they can reasonably expect that maybe we'll be in touch, another round of touching base, even if it's just to say this is where we are in the process.
Sure, thanks. Well, Mr. Van Sickle and I are going to be initiating that process probably next week. I have some travel this week that I need to get to Indianapolis for some professional development. But beginning next week, we're going to work out the initial phases of that. And I anticipate that between now and June, by the time the school year is over, we will have we'll have some information about sort of what we've learned from a data perspective on that. I think that is a foreseeable time frame, and I think that is going to then inform me as to sort of what next steps might be in terms of the other questions. But at this point, I don't have more information yet.
Okay, thank you. At this point, without any more questions, are there any comments from anyone at the table? Okay, Mr. Spike?
The only thing I'll add is the district is also taking this opportunity because in any classroom or any space that does have the asbestos ceiling tile, as Mr. Van Sickle said, all the ceiling tiles in that room will be removed. The ceiling grid will also be removed, and the ceiling grid and ceiling panels will be new, but we also are doing a lighting retrofit throughout the school. So this will be the first step. So all the lighting will be replaced and improved. So that's one positive out of the outcome of this abatement project.
Yeah, I will say with the lighting upgrades, it really does make a difference, and I think Old Mill will definitely benefit from that for the staff, the students, and really anybody who walks through the door will notice it very quickly. I would be remiss if I did not thank the staff at Old Mill, our wonderful operations and maintenance staff. We have, and I'm so grateful that it was mentioned, we do have amazing custodial services, and they work really, really hard for all of us each and every day. So I really want to thank them for all of their hard work and service, and really and a lot of the hard work as we start pulling things from the classrooms. So it's going to be a big summer, but it's going to be something that's worth it. And Old Mill, I'm really grateful that we are able to accomplish that lighting project because I think it'll really enhance the instructional spaces, the hallways, the offices, and it'll be really an inconvenience. However, it will be a project that will pay dividends moving forward. So with that, again, I just want to remind everyone, updates will be on our website, and we will be communicating with Old Mill families directly regarding all kinds of timelines and updates that are coming up. So with that, I thank you for your time. I thank you for really the questions that we've received. They're really good ones. Keep asking them, and certainly if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, because I'm certainly not a certified industrial hygienist, give me a little bit of time so I can, reach the experts so I can get a proper response. So with that, I thank you again for your time, and I hope that you have a really nice week. Take care.